Welcome back to the channel. Exciting times, as you can see. Body is back on the chassis back in the shed. I've been working out some steering column goodness and a bit of dash. So I want the old school dash in there. It may have a modern spin on it, more than likely have a modern spin on it, but I want the guts of the old dash, which is sitting right here. So that was the original one out of the G60. The back side of it, which is actually the firewall on that, is gone, unstitched it all. There's obviously random holes been punched in it over the years, like any old dash, but bit of token Velcro. But that is the guts of it. Instrument cluster, which is sitting down there. Glove box, both the same cutout, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if that was because they would be able to use that for left and right hand vehicles, but pretty cool. Also has some pretty cool old school demisters for the front, which I'll need to reuse. What I'm up to right now. Now, this is the GQ column with a G60 wheel on it. Now, we've altered that to fit on there. The splines weren't corresponding, so I got Matt, good mate of you would have seen him on trips and whatever in the Hilux. He's a machinist by trade. He managed to, we basically docked one off, machined it to fit straight in, to locate central, and then machined like a weld prep on it and tigged it up and yeah. What's the process, Matt?
Just trying to work out a drill size. That's about 19 mil, so probably do a 12, 13 mil hole will be fine. Drill it out and then just turn it down to suit that hole. Never leave the chuck the chuck key in the chuck like I just did. Big no-no.
Have you ever got the chuck key to the face?
I haven't been lucky enough not to.
It's the first for everything.
It is. Tonight's the night.
I've gone through this many times if you're following along, but we've moved the cab and the engine mounts and everything back, except for steering box. Steering box is staying in the same spot, but we've moved everything back 170 mil around about, hence why this shock tower body section is not over the shock tower. That's the difference, we've moved it. Now, we need to, we don't have to move it. I need to create like a tunnel in here to move my steering wheel further away from the seat in the driver's, from the driver's seat, to get a better setting position and driving position. Now that will also help meet back up with our steering pump, steering box rather. But in order to do that, it's a bit of a juggle. I don't really want to alter the firewall as such as like cutting and welding on it. I want to sort of leave that as is. I'm going to try and make like an adapter sleeve. So it may be a little bit more annoying to fit the steering column, but it's not something you remove like on service intervals or anything. So as long as it is possible, my one concern here, which I think I've done a bit of research and it might be okay. I'm sort of waiting on a phone call back from Mark's four-wheel drive about their hydraulic booster, brake booster, because with an adapter sleeve here, it's going to foul on this booster, and from the looks, on their website, it looks like it's quite a bit smaller. Doesn't have this big drum on the booster drum. So that is probably a bit of a crisis averted there. So my thought process is adapter sleeve, and you sort of fit the steering column in a little bit of a different sense, where you put the, where are we? Where I would put the steering column through and then fit this to it, and then this would bolt back up to the outside of the adapter sleeve, I'm calling it, and then you can fit the rest of the steering column to the underside of dash where your steering wheel is. So instead of your steering column coming in, you feed it through the hole, this is already on it, and this just bolts straight into that like there. My thought process is remove this like I have, steering column goes through the adapter sleeve that I want to create, and then this will go on in the engine bay. It's just a zip tie on the boot and 2 bolts, so nothing too difficult, and then bolt that from the outside of the adapter sleeve back in. That's all fixed. Then you just lift your steering column up, bolt it up to here, which needs to be shortened, cutting and shut. I've sort of started, but then I thought I'd better record something, and here we are. So that's my thought process. In my mind it works, so I'm just going to continue cutting this out the way because it needs to be shortened. This has all gone through with my engineer as well. He's sort of guiding me obviously with this because it's safety. So yeah, we'll hack this off neatly and see if we can get something sort of resembling where we need to be in order to sit it nicely in the dash and also in a good seating position. Let's roll. So I do want to keep this. It's just a matter of shortening it in some sort of fashion and then bracing it all back up again. It's out the way for now, which is good. I may be able to just put new bolts straight into that. That could work. So it is dash and steering column sort of getting something happening here, so it's not completely forgotten about when we get further and further down the track. Now, as you've seen, I've made I'm calling it a nose cone, but where the top mount for my steering column is. It was a fair bit of back and forth, in and out, but I'm happy with that now. I've got a seat in here. It's a Schulman, so it's a seat that I'm hopefully going to use, depending on funds. It's not the exact Schulman, but it's the same fitment, etc., etc. So the dash is in. it's where it's where it's going to sit. So that's a good thing to start with. And now I've just got to work out that isn't finished up there. It's all clear-coat in and it still needs to be fully welded, but it's tacked and clear-coat. I won't fully weld that in, as in spot weld it all to the dash or the firewall until engineers give me the tick of approval. But off to my bottom mount. Now, I was initially going to make, I thought the column would be even further through the firewall than it is. So it's not, which is probably a bonus because I think I can still use the same mounting system, as in it mounts from inside the cab, as from standard GQ. I will have to modify it because the angle is different and it is closer to the firewall. I'll get the mount and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is, picture this being the firewall, steering wheel up here. It bolts in here, it bolts to the firewall through four studs that's sticking out the firewall, and then the steering column shoots out here. That's all very well and good, but the rubber boot which seals outside from inside won't be able to work in that sense, but I'm thinking I might be able to make a boot plate, a boot seal on the on the engine bay side. So this, because my steering column is further towards the firewall, these mounts are too far towards the driver's seat. So I'm thinking I can adjust the angle of this by slitting this around, tilting it back a little bit. It's not huge. And then shuffling these, like cutting and shutting and getting these mounts because the bolts are back down here. It would save a bit of a headache if I need to ever remove the steering column. I haven't had to in 12, 13, 14 years in my GU, but chances are if I make it difficult to remove it, I'll need to pull this one out for some reason. So the closer to factory, the better in my eyes, because they design things for a reason. Well, Japanese do anyway. Some other manufacturers don't. So yeah, that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to try and modify this. So yeah, we'll get stuck into it. Oh, the memory card decided to fill up, so you missed out on the rest of cutting and shutting my my lower steering column mount, but I'm just about to pull everything out. Happy with fitment, very happy with my thought process and being able to do how I have. I'll bring it closer now, look. Hopefully you can remember what it looked like. So I've managed to maintain effectively the factory mount setup. So it all mounts from inside the cab. I was thinking, like I think I just described to you, of making like a adapter sleeve that will mount from in the engine bay. But with a bit of cutting and shutting, I'll show you when I pull it out, I've managed to effectively keep it factory, just shortening and adjusting some angles. One thing that I will have to do that isn't factory is create, if you can see there, so from factory there's a boot to stop obviously water, mud, everything, the weather, ingress into the cab. So that, because I've shortened it so far, that won't work, but I've already got something sort of half planned, maybe some sort of diaphragm set up from engine bay side. But yeah, a minor detail, because the structural side of it is, well, in my non-engineering background, A-OK, because it's pretty well factory. So this is where we're at. Just need to, it's all tacked up and clear-coat in, and it's solid too, which is great. Which means when it's welded in, it's going to be even better. But I'm just going to cut a slot out in front here, tidy it all up and make it look OEM sort of spec. I did that out of 1.5, actually it might be 1.6, so it's a little bit heavier gauge. Yeah, stoked, very, very happy with the way that this steering column's gone. But yeah, we'll rip it out and we'll show you in a closer detail with better light. This section here is all the same. I haven't altered any of that. I haven't altered anything on the actual shaft other than pulling off the ignition. We'll work something out there down the track. That's not a problem. Well, not yet, it isn't. But this is where I was sort of... Initially, I thought my steering column was poking through the firewall more, but it turns out it wasn't too bad. So I've actually cut this section off of this mounting plate, and this section was cradling the bottom of that. So I ground that, I unstitched the welds off that, and then cut this right around the bottom of the mounting plate, pissed that off. You can see that's where that seal was. And then got rid of that. Then I just had this piece here, which was actually extended. So you could see that that whole mount was actually pulled down here further, which means that now this was effectively down here. And let me get it for you. And this boot stopped any weather getting into the cab. So that's what I need to just work out. I'm really stoked with this because other than the seal part of it, there's no feeding the steering column through and bolting in, because you got fuel filter, you got oil filters, you got master cylinders. Like, that area is pretty tight. I know that because of the GU, same thing. So this will just be slide it through, line it up with your steering box, mount it all in from in the cab, bang, done. It's no fiddling around. So it's effectively the same as an OEM, just altered. So yeah, stoked with how that's worked out. It's sort of just, come together. The more you look at something, sometimes it gets a bit more confusing. If you start, don't get me wrong, you got to think about things, but sometimes if you start cutting and shutting, it just works out. So we need to, I'll remove this, gonna TIG all that up so it's all a complete piece. I just tacked it while it was in there, so I know it's gonna fit. But yeah, then I'll also pull that nose cone part that the top mounts to, weld all that up, cut my slot in it around the corner, make it all look pretty OEM, and that will be good for some photos for the engineer. Just get that done here.